one of the more substantive, serious issues beyond the destiny of the expats here is a global issue, and that is the impact of all these tensions on the oil and gas markets and what will happen if Russia actually does attack, is sanctioned, and the Russian energy supplies are all of a sudden cut off, not just from Europe, from around the world. What will happen to gas prices? What will happen to the economies of the world, so dependent on every drop of oil and every liter of natural gas? And to discuss that, I'm bringing Elizabeth Schulze, who has been reporting on this and studying. And Elizabeth, I just want to ask you, what do you say when people ask about the impact that this situation can have on one of the world's major energy exporters, Russia, and what it will mean for people behind the wheel of their car, heating their home, or whatever?
Well, Terry, the key thing to remember here is that prices in the oil and gas markets, like so many other markets, are all about expectations for supply and demand. And as you say, Russia is a major player in these markets. It is the second largest producer of natural gas in the world, the third largest producer of crude oil. And those commodities directly affect the prices that you pay at the pump or the prices that you pay for your electricity and heating bills. So I've been talking to analysts, and one of the concerns that they have is that if the U.S. and European and NATO allies impose sanctions on Russian exports of oil and gas, that would disrupt the market. But at the same time, there is a fear that President Putin could then retaliate by further cutting off supply of oil and gas to the rest of the world. This would come at a time when we are already seeing shortages in those markets and seeing very strong demand. And as you know, supply shortages, strong demand, that means higher prices. We are already seeing a run-up in energy prices because of this dynamic and because of these tensions between Ukraine and Russia.
And as you mentioned, we're seeing these higher prices. So bottom line, what are we looking at? I think the gasoline near my house in Washington, D.C., the last I checked was somewhere in the 370 range.
No doubt.
What are consumers looking at?
It is not cheap right now, Terry. The national average for a gallon of gas in the U.S. is about $3.47. It's gone up about 8 cents just in the past week. And the key reason for that is that these geopolitical tensions are contributing to a run-up in the price of crude oil. So crude oil translates into higher gas prices. It's kind of a leading indicator. And you can see that the price of crude oil has just been surging so far this year. It's now at about $90 a barrel. We haven't seen it trading at that level since 2014. So really what this means is that as these concerns are going on in the oil market, people who are going to fill up their gas tanks are going to be paying more. That's on top of already higher prices across the board, Terry. We are getting another read of inflation tomorrow here in the U.S. We know that prices are up not just for oil and gas, but for food, for products, for a lot of goods that people have been buying throughout the pandemic. And this is a real political liability. It's something that President Biden is trying to address head on. And it's one of the reasons, actually, that we've seen the White House kind of trying to work with other countries outside of Russia to say, can we boost their oil and gas exports to make sure that we have enough supply in case there are these further disruptions, if we have to impose sanctions, if Russia does decide to invade.
And we heard President Biden talk about that, about restoring some of the natural gas that Germany would lose if that Nord Stream pipeline doesn't go through, for example. But he also said, President Biden, something interesting. He said it's a two-way street. If Russia's not selling gas, they're not making any money. With oil at $90 a barrel, that empowers Vladimir Putin. Last time it was that high, back in 2014, that's when he last took a chunk of Ukraine, Crimea and eastern Ukraine. You make Vladimir Putin president of Russia when oil is $100 a barrel, and he will be a very powerful president indeed. But if he can't sell his oil, as President Biden suggests, it's a two-way street, his oil and gas. If he can't sell his resources, that's all Russia does. They don't make anything anyone in the world wants. They punch holes in the ground and sell what comes out of it, and that's it, with the exception of weapons, I suppose. So how does this calculation? We talked about American consumers. How do you work that calculation for Russia, an energy producer, if they get cut off from the market?
Yeah, this is such an important point, Terry. You're absolutely right. The President Biden made a point to say Russia needs customers to buy those exports. And the data backs it up. The Energy Information Agency shows that about 43% of Russia's over overall revenues of all of the money that the Kremlin took in over the past 10 years has come from oil and gas, specifically just from those exports. So if it's not able to sell that, it's not bringing in that money. And that's a political problem for President Putin. And certainly he's aware of that reality. At the same time, we've seen kind of this preemptive strike on the part of European countries and NATO countries to try to boost their imports from other countries outside of Russia. So interestingly, we've seen a huge surge of natural gas that's coming from the United States go towards Europe, and they have stockpiled this natural gas. Analysts I've talked to say that they are now kind of prepared to have the stockpiles ready in case there is this sort of cutoff, which would mean they don't need to be buying that gas from President Putin, and that would be a political problem for him. You know, it's certainly a problem on top of the existing economic penalties that the U.S. is threatening. You know, they're not just threatening sanctions on oil and gas. They're saying they're going to target all sorts of other markets like semiconductors. So the crippling effects on the Russian economy could be equally as bad as what we see, along with the price hikes that American and European consumers could pay too at at the pump, for example.
That's fascinating, Elizabeth. And the long-term impact on the reliability of Russia as a seller of these energy resources. Look, if your local gas station is the site of a shootout every few weeks, you aren't going to go there very much. People might not trust. They might want to diversify out of their dependence on Russian energy sources. And that is another part of this high-stakes calculation in the energy markets, which has so much to do with what's going on here. Elizabeth Schulze, thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Terry.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.